Okay, this video is going to be about the slaves of Babylon. Jeremiah, talking about the vision of Babylon, says in Jeremiah 2:14, "Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled?" In other words, why isn't there any work? Why is it hard to support yourself? A lot of God's people are still okay, they're not suffering, which concerns me, because George Washington said paper money, or the idols of Babylon, will have the effect in your state it will always have, to ruin commerce, oppress the poor and honest, and to ruin and open the door for every species of fraud and injustice. So sometimes I wonder if God's people are honest, because paper money oppresses the poor and the honest. So it makes me wonder if God's people are honest. So getting back on the topic of, is Israel born a slave? Jeremiah 2:14. The Bible also says in Revelations 18:13, "In her, Babylon, was traded slaves and souls of men." Okay, now, if you have a social security card, you're a slave. This is the image of the beast, the capital letter name. Whenever you sign to it, you are bankrupt. Bankrupted people are slaves. So in 1933, America found itself bankrupt to the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a curse in Deuteronomy 28:43. Curse to a nation, not a church. Well, it can be to God's people, but God was speaking this to Israel. "If it comes to pass that you hear my voice and obey my commands, blessed you will be. You will lend to many nations and not borrow. But if it comes to pass that you do not hear my voice and obey my commands, cursed you will be." Verse 43, "The stranger that is in your midst will rise high above you. He will lend to you, you will not lend to him. The borrower is a slave to the lender." So we are slaves to Babylon. Babylon is the banks and corporations. Proverbs 22:7 says, "The borrower is a slave to the lender. The rich rule the poor." The borrower being America, the lender being the Federal Reserve, which Babylon is a curse to the nations. The Federal Reserve is tied to all the other central banks in the world, Bank of England, Canada, Australia, and all the, Japan. That great city which reigns or rules over the kings of the earth. The rich being Babylon, the banks and the corporations, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, these elite families. "I will raise up the Babylonians," Habakkuk 1:5-6, "which will march across the breadth of the land, seizing dwelling places not their own." The banks and the corporations have seized dwelling places not their own. They lobby the politicians. They create money, making themselves rich, lobbying politicians to pass laws that benefit them, the banks and the corporations. Revelations 18 talks about, "In her was traded all manner of goods," one of them being slaves and souls of men. So when God says to come out of her, he's saying stop being a slave. Isaiah 48:20-21. Now the reason why I bring up Jeremiah, because what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. This is the same thing that goes on over and over and over. Same thing. Mystery Babylon is the same Babylon, is the stranger, because it's a curse that you can't see, because God has closed the eyes of the prophets, the seers, and the rulers. Isaiah 29:9-11. So God closes the eyes of the nation to this mystery Babylon. So I forgot where I was going with this. I mean, it's so we are slaves to this system through the Social Security card. In 1933, America ran out of gold. We hired a goldsmith to make our gold into a god, which is fake money. Isaiah 46, 1 through 7. The goldsmith being the banker, the beast being the debtor, or nations, tongues, peoples, debtors. Habakkuk 2, 6 through 8. They're debtors. Will not your debtors awake? So when God says to come out of Babylon, Isaiah 48, 20, 21, he says, come out of Babylon with shouts of joy, utter it to the ends of the earth, say, God has redeemed his servant Jacob. So look up the movement called Redeem Your Straw Man. Type that in Google, Redeem Your Straw Man. That's the image of the beast. Whenever you sign your name, whenever a government official calls your name, you're speaking on behalf of the image, because they can only deal with the image. They can only deal with you if you are speaking for the image. So that's how you end up to be a slave. You're bankrupted because you don't understand. God says, here is wisdom. He that hath understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast. If you don't understand the money system, if you don't understand the Social Security card, if you don't understand the way things work, you're a beast. And that's what you are when you sign your name to the Social Security card. You're a beast because you don't know what it is. You have no clue the truth behind it. In 33, when we became bankrupt to the Federal Reserve, we began to issue a bond on our children. We threw them into the fire of debt because it's through this capital letter name, or the image of the beast, that was created at our birth, that we become a slave, that we become responsible for the debt of the United States. Corporation owned by international bankers. That's why we're a slave. Was Israel born a slave? Jeremiah 2:14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Why are we homeless? Why isn't there any money in the economy? Paper money has had the effect in your state it will always have, to ruin commerce, oppress the poor and honest. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they understood money. That's why they said no state shall coin money on anything but gold and silver. Now we have a fiat currency system. It's a fake money system. America did the same thing Israel did. Read Ezekiel 23:37. With their idols, they committed adultery, and it's fake money. So their children that they bore to me, they threw them in the fire. The fire is debt. It's the destruction of the country. The curse in Deuteronomy 28:43. To devour them, because what this nation is doing is they are keeping themselves afloat with this borrowed money that they borrow from the Federal Reserve at the expense of their children, because their children is in the fire. Because when we borrow money, America as a nation, when we borrow money from the Federal Reserve, we haven't paid our debts, so our children have to pay it. And they're worth money. They have a monetary value because they generate income. The labors of the people are for the fire. Habakkuk 2:13. Habakkuk talking about the vision of Babylon, the banks and the corporations. So the fire is the debt. We threw our children in the fire. So man, I hope you guys get this. I'm trying so hard. I got many videos. There's many facets to this this revelation of Babylon. I just hope that somebody finally wakes up and finally starts to get it. Thank you.